Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Eric Johansen, a teacher with LSAT Demon, and joining me today is LSAT Demon student Laura, well, now a departing LSAT Demon student because your watch has ended. You have reached the end of your LSAT journey, and it's been a long one from what I understand. You are a testament to what some patience, some diligence, some persistence can get you. So yeah, just give me the 50,000 foot overview of your LSAT journey because you've been at it for a while, huh?
Thanks for having me. Decided to finally, I thought about law school for a long time. I have a ridiculous number of friends that are lawyers. And decided in November of 2022 to actually do it. And so that's when I took my first diagnostic. I am kind of this is a very dorky thing, but I was like very anxiously awaiting my LSAT Law Hub books to come overnight from Amazon because
Love
I
that.
really wanted to take the diagnostic.
Love that.
So I got a 157 diagnostic, which is pretty good. And so I did it on my own for a while. Like I just got books and was just doing it through this book. And I was like, cool, no problem. I'm really good at standardized tests. So I signed up for the February 2023 and was like, yeah, all right, couple months, no problem. Took that and got a 160, which, is not like a terrible score or anything, but I was like, yeah,
No?
that's not what I want. And I had been listening to the podcast since like June 2022. And so I guess after that, I was like, well, yeah, this self-study and paper study didn't really help me that much. So I think that's probably when I started the Demon. And so then let me think, when I took my next test was September. Oh no, I think I took August because I said, okay, I'm going to take it and prepare to apply. Because if I get like my dream score in August, then I'll just apply. So I like got
Sure.
my letters of rec. I had this whole spreadsheet. I did the stuff you're not supposed to do where you don't focus on your LSAT and you focus on all the other things.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was ready. And then I took that one and I got a 165, which
Okay.
again was a good score. And people were like, that's good. You should just apply. You should just do that. But I knew that I could get probably in the 170s. And so I was like, and I had, fully kind of gotten on board with the LSAT Demon logic at that point. And I was like, no, like I don't need to do it this cycle. Um, I'm trying to go for free or, cheap or whatever. And so
hmm
I can do better and I've got way more chances. And so, yeah, I'm not going to do it this cycle.
And you didn't feel pressured to jump into that application cycle at all?
I mean, a little bit, but also I don't know. I felt like I knew a lot. This is going to sound cocky, but I knew a lot more than the people that were pressuring me, like my parents or like
Totally.
people. And I was like, I listen to this like podcast religiously. I listen to other podcasts. Like I've done a lot of research on this. And so like I get why you guys are saying that, but also you're wrong. And it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there was some of that, but luckily I'm 10 years out of undergrad, so like I have a job and so there wasn't any big deal to like pushing in another year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Cool. So that was second attempt, 165. Great LSAT score, but you knew you could do better. And then that was what, still the end of 2023?
So that was August 2023 that I took that one. I realized that logic games were very much my weakest section.
Hmm.
So I devoted a lot of time and energy to logic games. And then I don't think I took the test again until I was signed up to do the January test, but I didn't study enough over the holidays and ended up withdrawing from that one. Because I was like, I'm not going to burn an attempt when I don't think I'm actually going to make much progress.
Great.
Um, and then which one did I end up taking? April 2023? Are we in 2023 now? No, 2024. Yeah, so okay. It's like a
I'm
long.
right there with you. It's tough to keep track.
Yeah. So then I signed up for April 2024. And I had been like working on logic games like crazy, like felt really good about it. My practice tests were like upper 160s, some lower 170s. I got a 179 randomly in there.
Nice.
Um,
Sounds like a couple perfect sections. You put it all together and got a -0 on some game section for sure.
I think I got a zero minus zero on a logical reasoning too, which was
Yeah,
like
no
mind
doubt.
blowing. I don't even know how it happened. And then yeah, so then took the April test. I got a 167. I was disappointed because I was like, that's only a 2 point increase, and I had taken like a long time in between the two, and I was like, come on, what? Only 2 points?
Mm.
Um, but I had like already decided I'm gonna take June too because because logic games were going away. And at that point, I wasn't perfect at games, but I don't know, convinced myself that I was really good at games.
It didn't feel like the glaring weakness for you anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, and I like logic games. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't perfect at them, but I liked them more because they were like I love reading, and reading comp was always my best, but logic games were a nice like mental break almost.
Yeah, they're fun. I mean, they're
Um,
games.
yeah,
They're
right, they're
fun.
games. Well, and
Yeah.
I always had Nathan's voice in my head too, being like, these are solvable. All the information to answer this question is right here.
Hmm.
And just like
I,
remembering that was helpful.
yeah. And I feel like even though I guess you ended up getting your final score without the games, is that right? Yeah. Despite that, yeah. So despite that, I was gonna ask, I guess, like, did it feel like all that time spent on the games, working on the logic games, are you frustrated that all of that ended up not playing into your final score? But I ask you that merely to invite you to say no, because practicing the logic games actually made me better elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, so in June I got a 172, which was my goal from the beginning. And so I could have said, cool, done, did it. I got into the 170s. That was my goal. But I kind of said to myself, well, as much as I like logic games, they weren't my strongest section. I've done 4 attempts. It's gonna kind of bug me if I've got this one attempt left. Like I
Hmm.
should just shoot the last bullet, as they say, and just do it.
Yeah.
And then got a 175. So that was awesome. And no, I don't regret working that hard on the logic games because also at that, like, who could have predicted they were going away?
Hmm.
And yeah, I enjoyed them, and I feel like I got better just overall. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing that stood out to me from what you said was you recognize with the logic games that they're perfectly solvable. All the information you need is right there. And that's actually true of every single section of the test. But I remember learning that lesson most clearly on the logic games. And then when I felt that on the games, I could say, whoa, hold on. It's actually the same mentality and the same approach on reading comprehension. I just have to treat RC a little bit more like the game. So I have no doubt that that work on the games made you better in LR and RC.
Yeah, it was great. Well, and it was funny. I remember after the April test, I think there was a logic game that just totally threw me off. It was my last one, and I was like, whoa. But because it threw me off so much, I literally thought about it all night. And I woke up the next morning and grabbed a notebook and said, look, I need to just like do this logic game really quick because I can't get it out of my brain.
Uh huh.
And I remembered all the rules and I did it. And I was like, no, that was solvable. Like, and I figured it out. And I was like,
Yeah.
dang it. Like,
Yep.
um, but it
That's
just really
amazing that
threw
you
me.
remembered it. It stuck
Oh
in your
yeah.
brain that much.
Yeah, it wouldn't go away until I actually like figured it out. I know. It's yeah, weird. But yeah, so I ended up with I'm glad that I got a really like a score that I would have been happy with the logic games. And yeah, it didn't feel like a waste.
So 157 diagnostic to a 160 to a 165 to a 167 to a 172 to a 175. Amazing. I love that. I love that. And that if you chart that, I'm sure that, that looks like a steadily upwards graph. I'm sure it didn't feel like that the whole time. There were moments when there were ups and downs and valleys and you had to work through some difficult times. Do you remember any particular challenges that you had to work through?
Honestly, logical reasoning was just always it was just really hit or miss for me. Like it was
Hmm.
so hard to have a section where I got -0 and then a section where I would get like -7. And I was like, I can't tell you like what was different between those two sections. And I think I probably approached it maybe almost too casually. Like, I didn't pay attention to really like what types of questions they were, like the question types when I was doing them.
Hmm.
And so for my last one, I also focused a lot on upping logical reasoning because I knew that that's where I had the most variability. And I felt like I had gotten to the level of game, like I probably wasn't going to get mastery of the games. I'd gotten to that. And I was like, okay,
Hmm.
so logical reasoning, like I really need to get that to be less, either -0 or -7.
Yeah.
Um,
So when you say you upped logical reasoning, what does that look like in terms of your study schedule?
drilling mostly. So I liked doing tests because it was hard for me to get a full hour. Like I tried to do that high quality hour a day, but 30 minutes was sort of my cutoff. And then
Yeah.
I'd say, oh, I could come back and do 30 more minutes, but I never made myself do that. So I liked to take tests. And I don't do that. I do them timed, but it's nice in the Demon because if you finish early or, you can just skip to the next one, or if you need to pause, you can. So I did a lot of tests, but if I was trying to focus on stuff like the logic games or the logical reasoning, I would just drill that section, and just really remember that I didn't have a time limit. And again, the guy's voice is in my head of just solve this question. Like, why would you put an answer until you've actually solved it? So yeah. So drilling was the big, and just really focusing on them and looking at the question types and all that.
Yeah. You clearly have a good memory for the stuff you feel like you missed. Are there any, I wonder if there are any LR questions that come to mind as like, oh man, that one LR question. I remember drilling that back in March of 2023 and it sucked. Because I think I have some of those, but I'm interested to hear what your take is.
I don't know if I can remember specific L. I mean, there's there were definitely some that I would know that I'd read before, and I was like, dang it, why do I still not know what the answer is?
Yep. Yep. Or was there a particular question type that you felt like you struggled with the most? Like for me, early on, it was parallel reasoning. I had this mental block on parallel reasoning and parallel flaw questions that for whatever reason I had to
Yeah,
overcome.
actually, parallel flaw was difficult for me. And I think I don't want to say flaw in general, but sometimes, yeah, that was hard because sometimes it was like not actually asking you to evaluate the argument, but to find the flaw, or if the argument was sound, but then you had to find the parallel, whatever, or something. Yeah, that was always tough for me because I was like, if there's nothing wrong with this, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Um, so, and there's not that many like that, but there were definitely those ones that I would read and I was like, well, this makes perfect logical sense. So I don't understand how any of these, and then even if the question wasn't actually asking me to find the flaw, if I couldn't find the flaw, I'd get really messed up.
Yeah. Because that's our default assumption going in is that they're gonna be a terrible argument. So when it actually makes sense, it's that moment you're like, oh, hold up. I don't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah, yeah, that would always
Yep.
kind of throw me off.
Or well, at least it's not as bad a feeling as not finding a flaw and then looking at the question and seeing that it's asking you to find the flaw.
Right. And then you're like, yeah. And then
Yep.
it's hard because you're just reading it over and over and over. And I'm like, I don't know how to read it any differently.
Did you discover any strategies for reading differently? Because we've all had that experience where we feel like we're stuck in a loop on a certain question, and no matter what we do, we can't see whether it's the question or certain answer choices. Like we can't get unstuck from jumping back and forth. I don't know. Was there a mindset shift or any approach or things that you remember learning to tell yourself to get unstuck in those kind of moments?
Um, Sometimes like rearranging the passage, or just like
Yeah.
saying, okay, like let's find the conclusion here. And okay, let's only focus on that, and then let's read it as a whole. And like, yeah, can we get to that conclusion? And it was funny because I would feel very discouraged and like not study for a couple of days, and then I'd listen to the podcast, and Ben and Nathan would like talk about how to approach these things, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that is what you do, and this is so easy. And then I'd like go home and be all inspired to go and do that. Um, So sometimes I think rearranging it helped, or just breaking it down of just like, okay,
Yeah,
I can't see, uh, I can only see the forest right now, but let's look at the
sure.
trees.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, especially if that translation helps you get to the conclusion or reinforces, hey, what is the conclusion here? What's actually the main point?
Right. Yeah.
And use that as your guiding star to
Exactly.
get
Yeah.
through.
Like, can we get there? Like, are there questions? Like, yeah, kind of like, are there gaps in this conclusion? And it's like, oh, yeah, well, that, no, that doesn't actually lead to that at all.
Yep. Cool. Well, you mentioned the podcast and about Ben and Nathan's advice on the podcast. And I remember for your email, you, I think, actually thanked us for the repeated advice to not go to law school and to not become a lawyer because it challenged you to reflect on that. Talk about that, because obviously you're still going to law school. So what happened?
Um, yeah, well, so like I said, I have a career. I am a full-time fundraiser for a nonprofit. And I like my job and I like don't need to go to law school. But so I'm a court-appointed special advocate. That's what pushed me to decide to actually start applying. But I just feel like the questions they asked of like, there's other things you can do, and like, could you still make a difference without doing this? And why do you want to go do this? And why would it really made me like do a lot of my own research too, of like reading what it's actually like, and like what they say, like look up what actual lawyers do and like talk to people. And um at the end of the day, I really like finding the one sentence that makes it not work, or debating, you know, what just like finding the random arguments that you can find for something. I actually
Mhm.
really do kind of like having just like busy, I don't want to say busy work, but like kind of that type of work.
Yeah.
Like just coming in and sitting down and like having work to do.
Stack of paperwork
Um,
to work through.
yeah, like
Hmm.
just to get through. But I think it just it just helped a lot to have them in my ear being very, I don't want to say negative, but they just really are like, make sure you really think about what this is.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I think it helped me when I was like, no, I think I do really want to go. Like, yeah.
Do you have an idea of what kind of law you want to practice?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a court appointed special advocate and I love that. So GAL, guardian ad litem, and like family law and working with kids in the system, I think would be great. But then I'm also a doula. And so I've learned a lot about like reproductive justice. And I think there's a whole lot on that side. Reproductive justice, med mal.
Has that been an issue recently in this country?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. So all of that. So I mean, really just kind of focusing, I think, on female issues, really, and just like how that affects and how it trickles down. Because I think even though those are two sort of separate areas, they go together a lot.
Totally.
Like reproductive justice and then having kids in a foster care system. Like there's something there. So
Wow.
we'll see. I'm open to a lot of different things. I was a property manager for a while and I really like HOAs and contracts, which is really again boring. So who knows? But
Not everyone will tell you that they love HOAs.
I
So
know. Well, I know. Yeah, I know.
hey, we need somebody who loves the HOAs and that kind of stuff. So
I guess
fantastic.
loving an HOA is a strong sentiment, but I
It's work that
enjoy
interests you.
yeah, I enjoy the looking at the rules of an HOA and seeing how they work.
You sound like a lawyer in the making. So yeah, not surprising that you heard all of those admonishments to really think through it and do your research, and you came out the other side with like, yep, this is for me.
Yeah. And just feel like when you try to talk yourself out of something and you still want to do it, it's a good sign.
Applications are in.
Yeah. So I think because I had, tried to be ready for for the previous cycle, I had a pretty good idea of what I needed to do. And so the personal statement, was the biggest thing that took me a while, but I knew I really wanted to um, submit as early as I could. And I had that 172 in May, or no, in June. And I was like, cool, I'm going to take the August one, but there's not really a lot of pressure on it, I don't feel like, because I have a score I already like. So so I had a lot of time. So yeah, I think I got them all in with like the first week of September, except for the ones that didn't open till later. But
Right.
yep, they're all in now.
Any place that you're really itching to go to, or is that secret information until later this cycle?
No, it's not. See, honestly, I have tried really hard not to like pick a favorite. They all I really there are things that I really like about all the schools I apply to, and there's probably about like 18, I think, that I like really would be happy at any of them.
Awesome.
Because I think it just depends on a lot of factors too. Like it's going to depend on how much they offer, it's going to depend on where they are, there's a lot of factors there. And like I am applying to two in Colorado. I don't really want to stay in Colorado, but if I were to get like really good offers to go there, that would change things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we'll just see what happens. But
Excellent.
well, so I did want to say like I'm a big splitter, which is part of the reason I took the LSAT so many times and pushed my cycle and like really wanted to do that because my undergraduate GPA is a 3.1. Which honestly I was very pleased with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
You didn't know
as
you were going to law school back then.
yeah, yeah. I was like, cool, B's, like, I had fun, but I also got good grades, fine with me. So I really wanted like an LSAT that reflected my current, mental like intelligence and fortitude and all that, and just enough that it would make an admissions committee say, okay, we probably should look more at this application versus just like, nope, put it in the no pile. Um,
Totally.
so that was a big motivation for working for so long on the LSAT. Was because I knew
Makes
I had
sense.
to kind of, yeah, overshine
Yeah.
that.
Plus, you've been out of school for a while. So, I mean, at the end of the day, schools have to use that number and they have to look at that number, but they can see your LSAT score. They can see the amazing work that you've done. They know that you are older and more mature now. And yeah, that was maybe a reflection of where you were at that point, but you're a different student and a different person nowadays.
Yeah, 100%. Which yeah, I think my application's pretty good, but yeah, I definitely wanted that LSAT to, be the thing that made them take a harder look.
Well, thank you, Laura. You've been so generous with your time. I appreciate your coming on. If you had to leave our listeners with one final piece of advice, what would it be?
I guess so twofold. I do really think about what being a lawyer looks like and if you really want to do it and why you're trying to do it. And then I also think delaying that cycle, like anyone that is trying to like push their applications, it's really just not worth it. I think it's Nathan that says this a lot, that time goes faster the older you get. And it's true. Like a year is nothing. Like it's totally worth it just to push those just for your own like mental health too. So those are my big pieces of advice. Oh yeah, I also wanted to like treat the LSAT like a practice test. I very much had a very casual, like I would go up, get a coffee, sit there, do some work, and stroll over to the testing center. Like it turned into a very casual process, which I think helped a lot.
Nice.
So yeah.
All great advice. Laura, thanks again for coming on. Please keep us posted on your admission cycle, what your offers look like, where you end up going. Would love to get an update sometime.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Email daily at lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.